Forbes has released a rather very interesting insight report that tells you exactly how much the Indiana Fever's social media engagements are actually monetarily worth, either on X or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, whatever. I mean, all these posts have a monetary value to them based on engagement.
At $55 million, the Indiana Fever's social media presence isn't even close to second place. Because the data don't lie, Forbes released a report that has the critics frantically trying to come up with an explanation. As everyone debated who is more important in the WNBA, the facts emerged and put an end to the argument in the most ruthless manner imaginable. Do you believe that a single player can actually contribute this much to the social media value of a franchise? Leave a comment below. This Forbes piece is essentially a bomb detonated on every point of contention made by the traditional WNBA fans for months. So let's cut through the clutter and discuss what just happened. The projected value of Indiana Fever's social media accounts is $55.04 million. It's not a typo. That isn't overstating things. When you draft someone who truly makes a difference in a way that this league has never seen before, that is what happens.
If you are a Caitlin Clark fan, if you're an Indiana Fever fan, this is something you already know. However, for the haters out there, the old WNBA fandom, many of you call them the slows, for those fans, they're in complete denial. We've tried to tell people Caitlin Clark moves the needle unlike anybody else in this league or everybody else in this league. It just sort of is what it is. Fans are coming to see one particular player, and along with that, carries over the support to the entire team.
Now, let's keep in mind that we're discussing hard data here before anyone begins complaining that this is disrespectful to other gamers or that we should treat everyone equally. This is not a viewpoint. This isn't prejudice. This is a valid study conducted by Zoom Analytics and STN Digital that monitored more than 20,000 pieces of content on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X over the course of a season. They calculated the cost to advertisers of obtaining the same degree of exposure through paid advertising, as well as impressions and engagements. The Fever won by such a large margin that everyone else was nearly embarrassed.
Posts are worth a lot of money. They are worth a lot of money, and I can tell you right now, that's a little over 5 times higher than the next WNBA team. 5 times higher. Let's go down here. Just scroll down. The Indiana Fever's staggering $55 million social media evaluation speaks volumes.
The Dallas Wings, with $8.61 million, came in second. Take a moment to process the information. More over $46 million separates first and second place. That race isn't competitive. Right now, that isn't even the same sport. It's not only the Fever ahead. They are using entirely different numbers in an entirely other game that no one else can play. With social value up 344% and engagement up 505%, the Wings also had an amazing year. And the gap still completely destroyed them. The Las Vegas came in third. Given that they are the dynasty team with numerous titles and star power, the Vegas Aces are priced at $7.64 million, which makes sense. The New York Liberty, which also tracks because they are in the nation's largest media market, came in fourth place with $7.54 million. This is where things start to become very interesting, though. The Chicago Sky, with $6.35 million, came in fifth. Do you recall the arguments over who is drawing more attention to the league? Do you recall the arguments over cultural relevance, effect, and rookies? The figure simply provided a definitive answer to that query, and it wasn't very close. The fact that the Sky finished fifth, even though its player was intended to have an equal impact and provide all the information you require. Throughout the season, it was said that 2 players were responsible for the WNBA's expansion and for attracting new viewers. However, the social media value indicates that the Fever and the Sky are separated by $48.69 million. That is a significant difference. It isn't margin of error material. That is an entirely different level of participation and influence.
Noticing the growing popularity of WNBA across social media, social agency STN Digital and analytics and measurement platform Zoom teamed up to quantify the league's online impact with a newly released WNBA social rankings and insight report. The research analyzes how every team performed across social media during the 2025 season and identifies which clubs and content pieces generated the most engagement, impressions, and estimated media value.
The Fever continued to promote Caitlin Clark content after the season concluded, which is even more heinous. They continued to provide followers with reasons to participate with their social media, maintain the flow of information, and keep the interaction going. That's shrewd business. You don't slow down when you have someone who creates that much interest. For as long as it lasts, you continue to give the audience what they want. The study examined content published over the season, from May 16th to September 11th, and found that the Fever generated 1.17 billion impressions and 38.73 million engagements. With 8B, that's billion. In comparison, that is more impressions than the majority of professional sports teams receive over the course of a year on all of their social media channels. And we're talking about the WNBA, a league that has historically had trouble gaining media coverage and public awareness. The Fever had a single YouTube video worth $733,594, which is among the report's most absurd figures. Not a series, not a campaign, just one video. The corresponding advertising value of a single piece of content was $750,000. Marketing execs go crazy over that kind of figure because it demonstrates how involved and active the fan base is. You don't obtain those numbers unless people are watching, sharing, commenting, and coming back for more. For comparison, the value of that single video exceeds the whole value of certain WNBA teams' season-long social media posts. Consider that. The value of a single piece of Fever content exceeds the sum of the posts made by certain franchises. That goes beyond simply winning. That is dominating in a way that alters the way the league as a whole must consider future fan interaction and social media strategy. It's also critical to comprehend the process used to arrive at these figures. The social value metric, which they employed, determines how much it would cost for advertising to have the same level of exposure in paid media. Given that Fever social media is valued at $55 million, businesses would have to pay $55 million to purchase the same quantity of impressions and interactions through traditional advertising. Simply by sharing stuff that their fans want to see, the Fever are naturally gaining that value. Additionally, this disproves the notion that the WNBA's expansion is evenly dispersed or that several players share equal blame for the league's recent rise in popularity. You would anticipate significantly tighter numbers among the top clubs if that were the case. Rather, you have a single squad that is 5 times as high as second. It's not parity. Regardless of whether people want to acknowledge it or not, that is one person taking the league as a whole and dragging an entire club into obscurity. However, it's important to note the Dallas Wings' enormous increase from year to year. The remarkable 505% increase in interaction is likely due in large part to Sophie Cunningham's personality and social media presence. Because of her ability to market herself and produce engaging material, she has become one of the most searched WNBA players and secured endorsement deals with companies like Arby's. However, despite that rapid expansion, their numbers still fall far short of the Fever's. That demonstrates the true extent of Caitlin Clark's influence. For those who believe the narratives being promoted during the season, the Chicago Sky's 5th-place result is likely the most startling discovery in the entire report. The media frequently compared two players and implied that they were equally influential in changing the league. However, the value of social media indicates a discrepancy of around $49 million. That competition isn't close. There is absolutely no competition there. No other player in the league is producing value and engagement at the same rate as this one.
Match.
Some will attempt to claim that the Fever's content team is better or that they had a better social media plan. And that is most likely somewhat true. The Fever and STN Digital collaborated on campaigns and content strategy, which probably increased the value they were producing. However, you can have the world's greatest social media staff. Additionally, the content won't be successful if your players aren't captivating to followers. The Fever's huge viewership is a result of their want-to-watch more Caitlin Clark content. They desire highlights, updates, film from behind the scenes, as well as anything else about her. The supply is driven by demand rather than the other way around. This research also emphasizes the importance of star power, something the WNBA has been hesitant to fully embrace. This egalitarian message, that everyone is equally significant and deserves equal attention, has been promoted by the league. However, that isn't how sports fandom operates. People relate to specific players. They purchase the jerseys of particular sportsmen. They tune in to see certain celebrities perform. The WNBA's marketing strategy will be centered around its largest stars. The quicker the league's growth will continue. The Fever's social media presence is also a great advantage when it comes to luring sponsors and striking deals. You have significant influence in those discussions when you can demonstrate to possible sponsors that your content receives over 1 billion impressions and produces close to 40 million interactions. Access to interested consumers is what brands desire. Furthermore, the Fever have demonstrated their ability to perform at a level that no other WNBA team can match. It is instantly converted into income through partnerships, sponsorships, and advertising agreements. It's also important to think about how this will affect the Fever's future business choices. You go to any lengths to retain a player pleased and on your roster when they're the one producing this much social media value. You construct around them. You back them up. Since losing them would have a disastrous effect on the franchise's financial performance, you make sure they have everything they need to be successful. The Fever are no longer solely focused on victories and defeats. They are considering all of the financial KPIs that accompany having a transcendent star, including engagement, impressions, and social worth. The Las Vegas Aces, the reigning champions, came in third place despite having several All-Stars demonstrate that social media involvement is not fueled solely by winning. Despite their dominance on the court, the Aces don't attract as many fans or connect with their material as teams with more marketable personalities. That is a crucial lesson for the league as a whole. Championship banners are fantastic, but if people aren't genuinely interested in your athletes, they won't translate into social media value and fan interaction. Considering that the New York Liberty is in the nation's biggest media market, its ranking of 4th is a little unexpected. It would seem that being in New York would offer a significant edge for social media expansion and interaction, but location is only important if you have players and material that people are interested in. The Liberty are well-managed and competitive, but regardless of market size, their social media ceiling is limited since no one is creating Caitlin Clark-level attention. The WNBA's recent expansion isn't as evenly divided as the league would like fans to think, as this analysis demonstrates. The figures unmistakably support the idea that there is a single factor responsible for the rise in interest and involvement. The value of the Fever on social media is 5 times that of second place. They produce billions of impressions with their material. Videos alone can fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those aren't the figures of a league that is expanding widely. These are the numbers of a single squad and player who performs at a level that is entirely apart from everyone else's. The revelation is confirmation for supporters who have been stating this all along. For those who maintained that several players had equal responsibility for the WNBA's expansion, the figures serve as a sobering reminder of reality. This should serve as a wake-up call for the league as a whole on where the value and attention are truly coming from. If you want, you can act as though everyone is equally important, but the facts reveal otherwise. Other teams are under pressure to improve their audience engagement as a result of the Fever's social media success. There is an opportunity lost if one team can produce $55 million in social value, while the others are stuck in the single digits. Other brands should see what the Fever are doing, figure out why it works, and figure out how to produce engaging content for their own fan base. If not, the disparity will just widen. This analysis serves as support for those who contend that some players need to receive better compensation and treatment from the league. It is far more difficult to defend paying players the same as those who produce a small portion of the interaction when you can immediately see the value they add to their team and the league through their social media influence. Although figures like these show that perhaps it should, the WNBA's pay structure does not take individual star power and marketing worth into account like other leagues do. This study's estimated media value model reflects how big businesses and brands view social media return on investment. They compute the cost of that exposure through paid advertising after examining impressions and engagements. From a commercial standpoint, it is astounding that the Fever are making $55 million in equivalent advertising value solely from organic content. Replicating that free marketing through conventional advertising methods would cost tens of millions of dollars. The figures are in, and there is no longer room for discussion. Caitlin Clark is doing more than simply alleviating Indiana fever. When it comes to fan interaction and social media value, she is functioning in a totally different universe than everyone else. We're dissecting everything in the mainstream media, so if you want to stay up to date with the actual stories behind the figures, press the like button and subscribe.